All right, let's talk about something that gets people really fired up, affirmative action. We're going to dive deep into this because it brings up some of the biggest questions there are about fairness, what we deserve, and really what the whole point of our institutions is in the first place.
And to really get our heads around this, we're not going to start with abstract theories. We're going to start with a real story, a case that took these huge questions and made them incredibly personal.
So this is Cheryl Hopwood. And you know, she had a pretty amazing story. She came from a tough background, put herself through college while raising a daughter, and she absolutely crushed it. We're talking a 3.8 GPA, great test scores, by any standard, a top-tier applicant for law school. But she was rejected.
And this, right here, was the heart of her argument. She found out that the University of Texas Law School had admitted minority applicants who had lower grades and test scores than she did. It wasn't a secret. It was their affirmative action policy in action.
So, was it fair? The university said, look, this is essential for creating a diverse student body. But for Cheryl Hopwood, it felt like a profound violation of her rights. This single case just blew up the debate around this one simple but incredibly tough question.
Okay, so if you're a university defending a policy like this, how do you do it? Well, when you boil it all down, the arguments usually fall into three main buckets.
Yeah, we can call them the corrective argument, the compensatory one, and the diversity argument. Each one tries to justify looking at race and admissions, but for totally different reasons.
First up is the corrective argument. The idea here is that test scores aren't the whole story. A 1300 SAT score from a kid who went to a top-notch prep school is different from a 1300 from a kid who went to an underfunded, struggling public school, right? This argument says we need to correct for those background differences to see who really has the most academic promise.
Then you've got the compensatory argument. This one is all about history. It says that affirmative action is a way of paying a debt, of making up for the massive injustices of slavery and segregation, whose effects are, without a doubt, still felt today. It's a remedy for past wrongs.
And last but not least, there's the diversity argument. Now, this is the one you hear a lot from universities themselves, especially in court. This argument says, hey, this isn't just about the past. A diverse student body serves our educational mission right now. It enriches the conversation for everyone and better prepares students to be leaders in a diverse world. It's for the common good.
But there's a huge but here. All of these arguments run up against a really powerful objection, one that cuts right to the core of what feels fair to a lot of people.
And this is where the rubber meets the road, right? It's a clash between two big ideas. On one side, you have the common good, using admissions to build a better, more diverse society. On the other, you have individual rights, the idea that a person should be judged on their own merit, period.
This really is the strongest objection you'll hear. The question becomes, is it fair to ask Cheryl Hopwood, someone who wasn't responsible for slavery or segregation, to bear the burden of fixing it? Is she being used as an instrument for a social goal, even if it's a worthy one?
You know, to really grapple with this, we have to pull the camera back, way back. We have to ask a much bigger, more philosophical question that gets at the heart of our ideas about success and merit.
So let's just run a thought experiment. If a university's main goal is just to serve the common good, what if its rejection letters were just brutally honest? Imagine getting a letter that says something like this. It's basically saying, hey, you're great, but we just don't need what you're selling right now. Nothing personal. And hey, it goes both ways. What would an honest acceptance letter look like? Well, it might say something like this. Congratulations, you won. Not because you're a better person, but because your particular set of skills just happens to be what we need. You basically won the admissions lottery. What this whole thought experiment does is it shines a spotlight on a really modern idea. That maybe, just maybe, justice isn't about rewarding what people deserve in a moral sense. This view says getting into a top university isn't a prize for being virtuous or hardworking. It's just about fitting a social need. But does that feel right to you? This idea that getting in has nothing to do with deserving it? Well, to push back on that, let's go way back in time to an ancient philosopher, Aristotle, who had a totally different way of looking at justice. So Aristotle, to explain his whole idea, uses this really simple example. It's about flutes. He asks, imagine we have a bunch of high-quality flutes to give out. Who should get the best ones? And his answer at first seems like a total no-brainer. Of course, the best flutes should go to the best flute players. Not the richest person, not the best-looking person, the best player. Simple. But wait, the reason he gives is what's so brilliant. He says it's because that's what flutes are for. The whole point, the purpose, or in his Greek, the telos, of a flute is to be played beautifully. For Aristotle, justice isn't about some abstract formula.
It's about figuring out the purpose of a thing and honoring the virtues that align with that purpose.
And that brings us right back to where we started. If we use Aristotle's way of thinking, we realize we can't even begin to argue about who deserves to get into a university until we first agree on what a university is even for. Is its purpose to reward the most brilliant scholars, to create social equality, to serve the economy? How we answer that question changes everything, because it defines what kind of justice we're even talking about.